Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Monday, September the 18th, 2023. I want to start by thanking you all for visiting this channel. And the reason I'm thanking you is because I've just hit 1,000 subscribers. I know that's not that much in the infinity of it all, but it's certainly a good start. You know, I started this channel at the beginning of February, so 7.5 months later, I finally hit 4 figures. So thanks again for visiting my channel. I really do appreciate it. Now, as far as what I want to talk about today, I want to talk about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., sort of do an update. I have talked about his chart before some months ago, so I think it's time to revisit. So he has declared his candidature for the US presidency. He did that at the beginning of April of this year, and I know a lot of you are supporters of Robert F. Kennedy. So I just want to see what's going on. I also want to look at what happened on Friday in Los Angeles. There was an incident where someone claiming to be part of his security detail was found with a gun. I mean, he wasn't. He, according to the Daily Beast, he was an anti-vaxxer and a Trump supporter, but then I suppose the Daily Beast would say that, wouldn't they? But I do want to know something about him, and fortunately I was able to look him up on the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department's website, and I actually found his birthday. He's born on August the 13th, 1979. You know, I actually remember what I was doing in August 1979. On August the 4th, that would have been just over a week before he was born, I went to a Led Zeppelin concert in Nebworth. I was 17. So memories were brought back by looking at his horoscope. Anyway, before I talk about Robert F. Kennedy and the man arrested, whose name was Adrian Aispuro, I want to look at the positions of the planets today, which is Monday, September the 18th, 2023. So let's see what we've got. Here we are. So the most important thing today is that the moon is going into Scorpio. So let's see. There is the moon at noon New York time on September the 18th. The moon is at 5:42 Scorpio. Now, moon in Scorpio is not great. The moon doesn't really work very well in Scorpio, particularly the early degrees of Scorpio. You know, 3 degrees Scorpio is the worst degree for the moon to be at. It's its degree of maximum fall. I mean, it's fallen because, you know, the moon is exalted in Taurus, therefore it's fallen in Scorpio. And, you know, this early Scorpio placement, it's also in the Via Combusta. I mean, I talked about the Via Combusta yesterday, but we've got more Via Combusta. And, you know, when the moon is in the Via Combusta, particularly in Scorpio, just things can happen. You know, we just can't foresee them. So we might make some plans and we just have to completely overhaul these plans because just something happens and something goes wrong and we have to start from scratch. So bear that in mind. But, you know, I don't think it's all bad, the moon being in Scorpio, particularly when it's trine Saturn. You can see that at noon, moon is at 5:42 Scorpio, Saturn is at 2:13 Pisces. So that trine, that 120 degree aspect, it exercises some control, but in a kind of a fortunate way. I mean, the moon in Scorpio on its own, can be quite brooding. It's emotional, but it likes to keep its feelings to itself. But at times can just be rather nasty and vindictive. And that Saturn trine may help, might create some order there. So it's possibly a good day for controlled emotion. It's not a time for letting our emotions out, telling everyone how we feel. No, it's not about that. And Saturn will help control our feelings and perhaps channel them into the right areas. Now, at the same time, while all this is going on, the Sun is on the Uranus-Pluto midpoint. Let me show you. There's the Sun, there's Pluto, and there is Uranus. So, in fact, that is a grand trine. There is a grand trine in Earth involving Sun, Uranus, and Pluto. So, how do we see this? Well, we can see it in two ways. We can see it simply as a grand trine in Earth. So, if it's a grand trine in Earth, that means we're going to be perhaps quite concerned with material details, and we're going to want to make sure that everything's properly organized. And some of us may have a great capacity for making money and for seeing opportunities for making money. The planet Pluto is, often connected with money. Remember that term, the plutocracy. A plutocracy is ruled by the rich. So it's got sort of an etymology, common etymology there. So Sun, trine, Pluto, ways to get rich. That's one way of interpreting it, particularly because it's in Earth signs. Again, Sun, trine, Uranus, suddenly getting rich. And then if we put the Sun on a Uranus-Pluto midpoint, we're going to want to make things happen that can improve our financial circumstances. And that is a very constructive way of using the energy. But, Sun on the Uranus-Pluto midpoint in general may not just be about money. It just may be wanting to change things. Doesn't matter what. We just want to change things. We're not happy with the way things are, and we believe we can create change. And because of this grand trine involving Sun, Uranus, Pluto, we can create change. So if we want to start a revolution, now might be the day to do it. Okay, not a big revolution, not a revolution concerning the fall of governments, but in our home, at work, in our social life, if we're not entirely happy with the way things are, we can start a revolution and change things, and people can change our attitude to us. And it may be a good time to propel ourselves into a leadership position. I mean, the Sun is about leadership. So it's a difficult energy, Sun on the Uranus-Pluto midpoint, the Sun, Uranus, Pluto grand trine. But if we handle it correctly and we're able to harness it, then we can actually use the energy to further our own ends, and particularly our ends of a material nature. Now let's turn to the 12 signs. So as always, I did my forecast for the 12 signs. So let's find them. Sorry for the delay. Here we go. So here we go. These are my forecasts for today, which is Monday, September the 18th, 2023. Aries. You can't look at surface appearances and think you understand the whole picture. and your feelings may give you false information about what's really going on. Instead, you have to live with ambiguity, not knowing what's happening and still having to make decisions. But your own dark secrets make you especially attractive. Taurus. Before jumping to conclusions about the world outside, you need to look in the mirror. What you see in other people is a reflection of you, and the unreasonable side of your personality may be pushed onto others. So have an open mind and give people the time and space to demonstrate who they are and who they are not. Gemini, your overall situation is steadily improving, but it might not feel like it. For example, there are going to be days like today when there's a lot of boring stuff to get through, and it isn't helped by the fact that people are holding on tight to their precious views of the world. It seems ridiculous, but you need to show some respect. Cancer. It's difficult not to be involved, and you can only be an observer for so long. You're watching from the sidelines, but you get closer and closer. If it is a dangerous situation, you clearly need to walk away, but maybe it's an interesting development which can help you grow as a person. Elsewhere, relationships tend to be emotional but stable. Leo, you're able to apply considerable force on the world around you, which may come as a surprise because right now you seem a bit shy and retiring. But you need to use your energy wisely and focus on the things that are really important. In terms of money, you seem very sure about what's right and wrong. Virgo. Don't underestimate people's sensitivity. They have a good understanding of who you are and why you are doing what you are doing. This means that in most cases you don't have to explain yourself. You also don't have to spend too much time on the phone or going to unnecessary meetings. At the center of Virgo's web, everything is clear. Libra. The simplest things can be covered by slime and mud, and we might think that things are far more complicated than they actually are. And this particularly applies to money. There seems to be a lot of confusion about what the right approach is, but if you're sensible and disciplined, you'll do the right thing without anguish or hesitation. Scorpio. Things feel better today. The moon is in your star sign, making a favourable aspect to Saturn. You're in your element, and you can bring a modicum of order to your immediate environment. Of course, there will be some surprises, and plans may go astray, but as far as you're concerned, it all feels very natural. Sagittarius. It's probably a day for reorientation, taking time to adjust to changing circumstances, and also for considering your own feelings. How have you been feeling over the last few days? How does this relate to your plans for the future? The key point is being somewhere safe and secure where you feel completely comfortable. Capricorn. You take people as you find them. No one's perfect and everyone's got rough edges. And today you can deal with all of this thanks to a fortunate aspect between the moon and Saturn. You can then encourage both friends and strangers to make the most of their talents. As far as love is concerned, there is an atmosphere of stable harmony, but laced with emotional power. Aquarius, at work you have a powerful presence and you'll be taken very seriously. You'll be able to concentrate on the things that matter and everything will flow from that. And perhaps what really matters is money. There needs to be honesty and transparency all round. People with strong emotions can be good for you. Pisces, with Saturn moving through your star sign, you probably feel a bit different. It's a time when you have to be the adult in the room, when you have to bring everyone down to earth, because you know that things without a structure will seldom last. And in your capable hands, hopeless ideas can be turned into real possibilities. So I'm now going to switch to the I Ching. And as always, I threw 3 coins in the air and I asked the question, what is Monday going to be like for visitors to my YouTube channel? So the first hexagram I got was hexagram 30, which is the clinging. And it's a pretty good hexagram. The symbolism there is of fire. It's like 2 suns. This is a sun and this is a sun. So you've got 2 suns, one on top of the other. And it's about a fire that burns twice. It's also about being able to spread our own light everywhere, for getting noticed. This is the fire. You can't ignore the fire. And it's the reason it's the clinging, I suppose it's influence. It's not something you can just ignore. The light of one's personality, it clings. And so this helps us really get our message across. So this is really a good hexagram. It's not a time for keeping ourselves to ourselves, because we've got a message, or we've got a personality, and people need to see that personality. I know the moon is in Scorpio, and moon in Scorpio, there's a certain inclination to keep everything hidden, but no, the I Ching is giving a very different message, I feel, from that moon in Scorpio. We've got to show the world what we can do. I mean, that doesn't mean being arrogant. It just means being there in the center of things and showing our inner fire. And there is a moving line. This second line moves, and the I Ching talks about the second line as the middle way. The bottom 3 lines, that's the one in the middle, and it's broken, and it's now moving to being unbroken. So by following the middle path, by not being extreme, one way or the other, we can further our agenda. And this hexagram moves to what is arguably the best hexagram in the book, which is hexagram number 14. Possession in great measure. And this means that if we are able to show the world who we are going to benefit. We are going to be in possession of something really powerful. Now, that possession in great measure may refer to our existing possessions, like who we are. I mean, no one can take away who we are. And who we are is what the world can see, and who we are is great. We don't really have to shout about it because it's obvious. Possession in great measure can also have a financial dimension. So, with that grand trine in Earth I was talking about, with Sun, Uranus, Pluto, we can perhaps harness that energy and find ways to actually benefit financially. So if you're trying to get some money together, maybe you're trying to get a pay rise, or someone owes you money, or you're trying to sell something or whatever, you really can be successful with this hexagram. So it really is very good. And so I know that when I looked at the astrology for today, it was a bit mixed, but I mean, it was overall not too bad. Or even though the moon was in Scorpio, I think the I Ching gives a really very positive spin on the day. So now I want to go back to the astrology and look at Robert F. Kennedy's horoscope. As I said, I have looked at his chart before. The problem with this chart is that we don't have a time of birth. I was quite shocked to find there was no time of birth. I thought Kennedys have times of birth, but I think that's maybe Kennedys who were born in Massachusetts. He was not born in Massachusetts. He was born in Washington, D.C. Maybe that says something about how the birth certificates in Washington, D.C. Are presented. But as he is standing for the presidency, maybe as the campaign progresses, we will find his time of birth. It's like with Obama. Okay, there were all these issues about his birth certificate, but during the campaign, at some point, his birth certificate was produced, and we found out that he was born, I think, at 7:24 p.m. in Honolulu. But anyway, this is the best we can get with RFK. In fact, he hasn't got Taurus rising. This is a chart for noon. So it really does make it. It does make it difficult when there's no time of birth. This chart, he doesn't have any fire in his chart, except Pluto in Leo. Pluto in Leo. I do think it is a bit of a problem if you're trying to inspire people, not having much fire in your chart, unless you find a way to compensate. And people who don't have any fire in their chart, they usually come in two shapes. One shape is really someone who has no fire in their chart, who just seems a bit uninspiring and insipid. They just can't create the energy. But the other type is someone who likes to compensate, who feels a need for fire, who feels a need to make things exciting, and maybe that's him. So that's an important aspect of his chart. It's a very negative chart. He's got moon in Cancer. Cancer is a negative sign, along with because it's a water sign. Earth signs, they're negative. They're receptive. So that is a very big part of who he is. So I suppose with the moon in Cancer and Mars in Scorpio, Saturn in Scorpio, that water side to him is able to pick up on what's going on around him. That moon in Cancer can tune into his country and know what's important to people. For example, he's very much picked up on the fears about vaccination. And I think he's also picked up on America's growing uneasiness with foreign adventures, particularly America's adventure in Ukraine with its proxy war against Russia. and he, I believe, is standing up against that. But in the process, I suppose he's making a lot of enemies, and one needs to be mindful of what happened to his father, who obviously was assassinated in 1968, and the incident on Friday was perhaps a bit of a worry, perhaps of a foretaste of the kind of risks that he might have to face for the rest of the campaign. I should point out that he does have a Mars-Saturn conjunction in his horoscope. It's not a very exact Mars-Saturn conjunction, but the Mars-Saturn conjunction is connected with death and delay, but given what happened to his father, we do have to think about that risk. So Mars and Saturn, and the midpoint of Mars and Saturn is 12 Scorpio, and at the moment Neptune is making a 135 degree aspect to his Mars-Saturn conjunction. That might make him particularly sensitive to it. He's had to, I believe, sort out his own security detail because they're saying that the government hasn't yet approved that. Isn't that right? I don't know whether it's not really going to be Biden's decision, but one article I said was saying, Biden has not given him a security detail, but that's probably just the way it's been phrased. Now, as far as what happened on Friday, it was in Los Angeles. I think he went to some Hispanic cultural event that he'd organized. I think he'd organized it. And so someone had infiltrated his, or someone had claimed to be security, but they were not, and they had a gun, and they were arrested. And I think they were taken away, and they were booked on a felony charge. And the event for the chart for the event, which was when this man I don't know. This is actually the chart when he was arrested. He was arrested at 4:40 p.m. Adrian Aispuro, and this was according to the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. So what is significant about this chart is the fact that there was an exact Sun-Uranus trine. So there's Sun at 2252 Virgo, and Uranus was at 2257 Taurus. So and also Uranus was exactly on the IC. So there was an event. There was an event at the event. Someone was getting close to him, someone who potentially had the opportunity to kill him. And there is that Sun trine Uranus, and that's a reminder that Sun, just because it's a trine doesn't mean that it's a fortunate event, but it was an event that didn't really get anywhere because Aispuro was arrested, and that was the end of the matter. But still, I think this event was important for Robert F. Kennedy. So let's just have a look at this event and compare it with his chart. So Pluto this is a reminder that Pluto at the time was at 28 degrees 2 minutes Capricorn, and he has his Sun at 2704 Capricorn, Mercury at 2858 Capricorn. So Pluto was kind of on his Sun-Mercury midpoint. And this Pluto is going to be a theme, certainly this year. This Pluto on his Capricorn planets is going to be there. That is potentially quite dangerous. It could be about the challenges that he's going to have to face. He's going to be really pushed, because I think it just may be the case that there are people in the Democrats who just don't want him to stand. They don't want him around. He's pushing things which are popular, which might take votes away from the Democrats. And I suppose maybe the nightmare for the Democrats would be him not getting the nomination. I mean, I think, to be honest, he hasn't got a chance of getting a nomination. The way the Democrats organize their candidate elections, it's really difficult for someone like him to get anywhere. So he might stand in the end as a third party candidate, and that could be catastrophic. Could be catastrophic, and so there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. A lot of pressure, I would have said, for him to withdraw, with that Pluto on his Sun, Pluto on his Mercury. Yes, Pluto does go into Aquarius, but I think it briefly actually goes back into Capricorn again next year. So that Pluto thing is a very important theme for him. So I mean, I think that's the main thing. Oh, we have to talk about Chiron. RFK's Chiron is at 2232 Capricorn, and so the Sun was sort of trine his Chiron, and Uranus was also. So that Sun Uranus trine was actually hitting his Chiron. In a way, that could have been a wound. I mean, I think it was close, maybe. I think he genuinely might have been in danger with that Sun-Uranus trine hitting his Chiron. So that was the incident. Now, as far as who was responsible for it, it was Adrian Aispuro, and I will show you his chart. He was a Leo with an exact Sun-Jupiter conjunction. He had been doing stuff on TikTok, apparently. He had particular ideas. Supposedly he's an anti-vaxxer. That's what the Daily Beast says. And that he's a supporter of Trump. Of course, they would say that, anything to discredit Trump. So he's got an exact Sun-Jupiter conjunction. Sun-Jupiter conjunctions can be a bit difficult. Jupiter is a planet relating to philosophy, and he wants ideas of the world, ideas about the way the world should be organized. And then you put Sun on it, and so he could have some very strange ideas. Who knows what he was doing? It may have been he just wanted to say something to RFK. I mean, we don't know. But there is a certain craziness in that chart. You can see there's Uranus. Adrian Aispuro has Uranus at 17 Scorpio, which is square his Sun-Jupiter conjunction. He has Uranus exactly square Venus. And then he has Venus trine Neptune. So that says something about Adrian Aispuro. One other thing, he's got Jupiter at 20 at 20 Leo. Siran, who murdered RFK's father, had his Jupiter at 1801 Leo. So Siran's Jupiter and Adrian Aispiro's Jupiters were very close. And, Jupiter is a planet of ideas and philosophy. Obviously, Siran was concerned about Palestine, whereas Adrian Aispuro, we don't really know what he was concerned about. We don't really know why he was there. So that's the incident last Friday. I just want to finish by looking at some other stuff going on in Robert F. Kennedy's chart. I suppose we should be thinking about his solar return. So he was born in January the 17th. January the 17th, 1954. So his solar return this was his solar return for 2023, which is this year. So this will cover him for the whole year. So again, we don't have a time of birth, so we can't really look at the angles. But the solar return does remind us that it's all about Pluto. Okay, we don't really need the solar return to tell us that he's got Pluto conjunct Sun, transiting Pluto hitting his Sun, but the solar return is a reminder of the importance of Sun-Pluto. This year is going to be transformational for him. Pluto is about power, and he's trying to push that power out and change the society around him. Of course, that is something that's going to be very difficult. We should also think about what his strengths are and how it relates to the society he's trying to change. Obviously, he's trying to change America. So, what does RFK do? What does RFK do for America? So here, hold on. There's that's the USA's chart. July the 4th, 1776, 5:10 p.m. So let's put USA in the middle, put RFK on the out. So yeah, so what does RFK do for America? Now, although we don't have Robert Kennedy's time of birth, we do know for sure that he has Moon in Cancer. And I think that perhaps is a strength he needs to really focus on if he wants to be president, if he wants to have any chance of getting elected. The Moon in Cancer, we know that Moon in Cancer is quite sort of nurturing. It's emotionally mature, I would have thought, in a politician. It cares. He needs to really show that. And that Moon in Cancer, he's trying to get elected to be president of a Cancerian country. The United States has its Sun at 1319 Cancer. RFK has his Moon anywhere between 4 and 16 Cancer. So that Moon is going to be relatively close to America's Sun. So that should be reassuring for America. And he needs to really play on that, I think. Also, this the United States has its Jupiter at 5 Cancer. So his Moon is potentially picking up on that. So I think that is a good link with the United States. He also has his Jupiter. He has his Jupiter in Gemini, and his Jupiter in Gemini hits the United States' Mars in Gemini. Um, I think that is potentially dangerous. Um, I mean, it could be it could be about violence. It's about the projection. America's Mars in Gemini is projected. Um, America cannot really recognize that it itself is a terrorist state and has been supporting terrorism, certainly since the Second World War, and as Syria, for example, where the United States is claiming to be fighting against terrorism by arming people in Syria, and it's actually creating terror. It's creating terrorism across the Middle East. I talked about Osama bin Laden recently, who was essentially a creation of the United States. So, in a way, the United States created the person who brought down the World Trade Center. It it just cannot accept it, and so RFK's Jupiter hitting Mars may actually be seen as being a threat. RFK, as far as I understand it, is someone who wants the United States to sort of bring an end to some of its military adventures, particularly in Ukraine. And I think that's what a lot of Americans want as well, to bring these adventures to a close. And there is a tension there, and I'm just wondering how that is going to work out. And the fact that his Jupiter is on the United States' Mars may actually be quite dangerous for him. Now, continuing on the theme of dangers, if we look at Kennedy's solar arc directions, so these are his solar arc directions for today, for what he's got at the moment. These directions are not going to be completely exact because we don't know his time of birth. So if we compare the solar arc directions for today with his natal chart, it's a directed Mars. Now remember, solar arc directions, you move all the planets 1 degree for every year. So RFK is, how old is he? He's going to be 69. So you would move all of the planets 69 degrees and that would symbolically describe his 69th year. And so if you move Mars symbolically, you get it to 2652 Capricorn. So it's moving very close to his sun. And so Mars is an aggressive energy. It could be, at worst, an attack. And so he's already had this one dangerous situation in Los Angeles. And with solar arc directed Pluto on his sun, solar arc directed Mars on his sun, at a time where he also has transiting Pluto on his sun, this is dangerous for him. His life is potentially in danger if he's not very careful. And when he asks for a security detail, and he asks the government to provide him one, I think he really needs a security detail. Now, where that threat comes from, I don't know. You could say, well, he's a threat to certain interests in the US. That's one place the threat could come from. But the very fact he's a Kennedy, the very fact his father was assassinated, there are crazy people out there who might want to continue with the tradition of assassination. So yes, he really does have to be careful. And we have to remember the circumstances in which his father was murdered. He was murdered because, while he was campaigning for the Democrat nomination in 1968. So yes, Robert Kennedy has to be very careful. Solar arc directed Mars on his sun is dangerous. Transiting Pluto on his sun is dangerous. The sun is a life force. So yes, he has to be careful. But I should say we do not have a time of birth. I'm looking at a chart with no houses, so who knows? It may not be as bad as I'm describing, and I would guess that if he is careful, he should be okay. But I thought I'd better end with that warning. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for today. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.